Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. Thank you for watching our another tech visionary interviews. These interviews are targeted for a manager level audience, someone who want to make an informed decision about tech usage in their world. And today we are here with Adam Jorgensen, really. Well-known figure in the Microsoft Data Platform and many other areas. He's a Microsoft Regional Director and MVP for many years, I guess, countless. And we are happy to have him here with us. Hey, Adam.
Hey, Reza, thanks so much for having me. I love what you've been doing with this series, and I'm super excited to be a part of it.
Thank you. Really appreciate it joining us. Adam is based in Jacksonville, Florida. Can you explain a little bit about your background, what you do these days, what you used to be doing like a long time ago?
Sure. A long time ago, I started my career actually working in support at a software company right out of college, and I learned SQL to help write cleanup scripts for bugs in the software that we supported. And that got me the opportunity to do more with the data team at that company. I really liked it. And so I grew to be a senior DBA and got to lead big initiatives with, data and then analytics and BI, back more years ago than I want to talk about, Reza, but it was still called BI back then. And then I moved on and was introduced to Brian Knight, who's our CEO and founder at Pragmatic Works. And we started Pragmatic Works from a very, very small team. And now we have a big, amazing team that does big, amazing things for customers all over the world.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for that very brief introduction. So considering these days and a lot of businesses affected by this pandemic, which is kind of the topic of today's discussion, what do you think this effect was on companies like your company, considering what happened and how things are changed?
Yeah, it's a great question, Reza. I think that a lot of it depends on what industries you're serving, right? If 75% of our clients were retail and airlines, we would be in a tough spot, candidly, because those industries are really hurting. And, obviously we're concerned for those that we know that are working in those industries and are furloughed or having a hard time. But, luckily we're more diversified, right? We do a lot of work in financial services, manufacturing, healthcare, even professional sports teams in the US. And so, we had a lot of different projects that, didn't really slow down. The biggest impact for us was in helping customers adopt their remote work policy. So even though, we're not necessarily on site with customers every day, customers are used to being in a big building in Manhattan or in a call center in Ohio or in a building in Dallas, right? All together in a conference room with a whiteboard to solve problems. They're not used to having to use Teams, for example, and all the new functionality that's there to do that, right? And so a lot of it has been where our team is largely pretty adept at being remote, helping the customer team learn to use Azure DevOps, for example, and integrate some of the additional Azure functionality that plays really well with Teams and with some of the O365 collaboration tools, and making that logistically kind of work together so that the projects can continue working in a smooth as possible kind of fashion, right? With everything that's going on.
Correct.
And then of course, we want to be really sensitive to, we're constantly concerned about our team and their safety, right? So clearly they're not flying anywhere right now, but we're also concerned about the customer team and their safety and availability and people's families. And so I think it's been a good opportunity for everyone to exercise their emotional intelligence, right? A little bit of EQ.
Correct.
I don't think everybody in the world is necessarily succeeding at that, but I think that our customers are doing it really well. I'm really proud of our team. And I think that when you work closely with people and you're part of a community like we are, Reza, right, there's a high degree of empathy for those people that, you're around. And so I think if we can use this to allow ourselves to be a little more empathetic and work a little bit more together, then we'll create something good out of everything that's going on.
Exactly, exactly. Like there's a saying that if there is, like, let's say a second pandemic, hopefully it never happens actually, but if there is a second pandemic, a lot of businesses would face it much easier because there has been a lot of like digital transformations already,
Right.
which is quite interesting. So, what do you think like businesses can do to avoid like the transitions happening in a situation like this? How they can let's say, as the title is, like pandemic proof themselves
Right.
for.
Right. So there's something that a lot of the big five strategy firms used to do back in the 90s, and it was considered very bleeding edge, right? And it was called red teaming. You ever heard the term red teaming? And it was
No.
basically like they would set up a team that would act like your competition or your enemy.
Right.
And they would go into another room and they would come in and say, "Hey, we just launched this product that competes with you. What are you going to do about it?" And they would game that out over the course of, a week or a couple of months. And they would do that every quarter, constantly during the year. And the goal was to always have somebody in the building who was thinking about what is your market doing and what are your competitors doing and what's the environment around you doing. And so they would constantly simulate these things to keep the executives or product leaders or line of business leaders on their toes, right?
Mm.
That has to be something that the executive leadership just does now. It's no longer some cool thing that you have to hire McKinsey to do, right? There's books about it. There's all kinds of things out there to help people be really great at it. One of the things that I mentioned to one of our CIO clients the other day, I said, all of the things on your nice to have in the next 2 years list just became need to have in the next 30 days. So
Yeah.
all of the, we got to get rid of this old collaboration software, and none of our systems talk to each other, and we have all these dependencies on this one person, and if they become sick or unavailable or something, right, there's a real problem. You have to go through your business, and you can't run pockets of your business anymore on a shoestring. You have to be able to have, even simple things like backup systems and documented processes. And I mean, you do so much work with so many companies, Reza. How many times do you go in and let's just say the customer's documentation is not amazing?
Yeah, I'd say we should count the other time, like how many times
Right.
it is.
Right. Both times, right? Both times. So,
Yeah.
there's, and that's pretty widespread, right? That's pretty widespread. And so when everybody came into the boardroom and the C-suite and everybody, and they sat down and they said, well, how do we do this? And how do we do that? And how do we make this work better? And we have to transform this. And how do we make this a digital experience? They were stuck trying to figure out how they do it now. Instead of starting from, here's where we are, here's where we go. They had to figure out what's happening over here. and how do we get a good assessment of what's happening, right? We do a lot of work in Power BI, for example, and one of the big immediate requests we got was supply chain reporting for so many customers because they were using all of this kind of, well, I know it's on a boat, but I'll find out when the boat gets here in a month, right? We don't need to integrate the data from the boat company, from the shipping company, because we know where it is. It's in the ocean. We really don't care. But now they care. And they need to know if it's going to clear customs. They need to know if it has to go to a different port because that port is closed because of a pandemic and so on and so forth, right? So all of the, as we put it, sort of nice to have things or upgrades have all become, very important, right? So my advice to a lot of customers is trust your gut. When you think you might need something, run that down because there's a really good chance you do. And there's also a really good chance it's not that complicated to implement, right? Integrating that new boat data took 3 days, right? That's not a lot of work to make that happen.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point you mentioned here. That like this situation helped a lot of businesses to like understand what they really need, rather than just having that in, let's say, their long-term plan, which is quite good. What do you see as part of like challenges right now? A lot of challenges has been moved away because a lot of companies before this moving to digital transformation, they've been thinking, oh, we'll do that in, let's say, 5 years later, 10 years later. A lot of things solved right now, but still we have some challenges in the way that like these new collaboration works, in the way that like digital meetings works versus what we had like stand up like a chat over coffee break or something like that. What do you see as part of that?
I think the biggest, it's a challenge and an opportunity. It's forcing companies to focus. I was at a customer, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and we walked in, and the leader of the business was giving an address, and he said, "We have 5 number one priorities for this year." And I went, "This is going to be a problem." You can't have 5 number one priorities by definition. 1, then 2, then 3. Right? That's how it goes. And so what you're seeing is a lot of the things that were being explored or maybe half done or pet projects within companies, all that's gone. And it's how do we acquire and support customers? How do we operate our business and understand how we're operating our business, and then drive efficiency around how we do that? And then on the other side, it's how do we create those new experiences to acquire customers, which is where you're seeing a lot of the digital transformation come from. And so with that focus comes the need for a lot higher cadence usually, because a lot of these things have very short time frames, right? We don't have a year to figure out how to get insight into our supply chain, for example, right? That problem's got to be solved by next week in some cases, right?
Right.
And so, what we're seeing is a lot of significant investment. You're seeing Teams and other collaboration platforms, their usage is just skyrocketing, right? Because everybody needs to use them. But I think it's great that you're seeing Microsoft respond and really build things very intentionally and quickly into the software that let people, feel like they're maybe in a room more together. You're seeing some of the things maybe that they're doing with like the National Basketball Association to put fans virtually in these arenas, and things that were not really thought of before about chat platforms, right? And I think that people are having to be a lot more intentional because we have that focus. They're having to be a lot more intentional about how do I schedule time to make sure Reza and I can connect, right? I'm not going to see him in the break room getting my coffee at 10 o'clock in the morning because I know we both get out of the same staff meeting at the same time, right? So I need to put 15 minutes on the calendar so he and I both remember that we got to talk to each other, that we've got to check in, right? And that intentionality pulls through into all the other things that the businesses are trying to focus on. So I think it's creating a lot of focus. It is creating more meetings. People who work from home tend to work a longer day. They start a little earlier, they work a little later, they have more of a tendency to kind of work through lunch because you're missing those social constructs of, hey, let's take a break and go get a cup of coffee at 10 o'clock, or hey, let's go out to lunch for an hour and go grab something, or hey, I got to beat the traffic on the ride home, so I got to make sure I get out of work on time, right? You're missing all those social constructs, and so it can be challenging from a time and mental stress perspective, but it's also creating a lot more intentionality and focus.
Yeah, that's a really great point you mentioned, that it is like everything comes with a focus these days. Like we can't just rely, okay, on a lunchtime chat, I'm probably going to see that guy, I'll have this conversation about this. You need to have a focus, like this is the meeting I'm going to have with this person, which is great. Another aspect you mentioned was like the social interaction. How do you think, like this is a challenge we have already as well, like how do you think this can be like eased somehow, because people don't really see each other face to face, like they see only through meeting, and meeting only happens if there's a purpose. Like what do you think can be done for this?
You have to have meetings where the sole purpose is to get together. And I'm not going to tell you that we have the magic answer, that we have it all figured out, but a couple of the things that we do every time we have a staff meeting. So we have department meetings, and then we have an all hands meeting. It's the whole company, right? Every month. We extend that now. We have them at the end of the day Eastern time, and we extend them by an hour so that they're, instead of being from 4 to 5, they're from 4 to 6 Eastern time. And we just make the second hour open Q&A. We call it kind of a happy hour, right? People can, relax a little bit, turn their cameras on, socialize. And I think we need to be intentional. Our HR team, Kim on our HR team did a great job of coming up with some ideas for actual topics for those. So just kind of fun topics about the places you want to go on vacation when you can travel again. And, we did a show and tell one day where people brought, old Pragmatic Works swag or something professionally that means something to them. A couple of the folks on our team have animals, livestock, chickens. So somebody actually brought a chicken to show and tell on video, which was amazing. And then everybody was sending her, custom chicken t-shirts from Etsy for the next week. It's a lot of fun to just create some conversation around something that's not work.
Right. Yes.
You've got to do that. You've got to, and it takes intentionality. You can't just put 30 people on a meeting and go, okay, guys, what do we want to talk about? We got to seed that a little bit with some kind of low key, fun, interesting things that everybody can kind of approach, right?
Yeah, exactly. And these are quite important meetings. Like a lot of businesses consider these as something good to have, like nice to have. But I say this is something must to have, because this gives people the energy to have that kind of social life beside just talking to a camera. It would be definitely much worth to do something like that. Thank you for all these insights. Is there anything else you think worth mentioning here?
I think the one thing that I'd like for everybody to keep in mind is the more that you can help somebody else and just be empathetic and look out for those that are around you as we go through all this, both professionally, personally, in your family, in your community. There's a lot of very polarizing opinions about a lot of this stuff, especially in the US right now. And we have to, my encouragement is for people to try to look past that wherever possible, right? And, treat everybody as people, right? Continue to be empathetic, continue to, lead with, understanding and compassion. And I think that when you do that, the way you interact at work, the ideas you come up with to help people come closer together on your team, your engagement with customers, and then, of course, just your own personal life, your stress level goes down. And we could all use a little bit of that. So
yeah.
If that's something that people could take away from today, that would be fantastic.
That is definitely a great point to mention. Awesome. Thank you, Adam, for your time, for your valuable insight. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. If someone wants to reach out to you, what is the best way to contact you?
Best way is just message me on LinkedIn. So I check those, fairly frequently. So just send me a note and give me some way to contact you, and we'll sync up.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Adam's LinkedIn address is just down below here. Thank you, everyone, again for joining us. Thank you, Adam, for your time and valuable insight. Until next time, see you again.
Thanks, Reza. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.